Welcome everyone to another edition of Sports Etc. We're talking with Jimmy Pritt at Pritt Motorsports, and Jimmy is the veteran of the Pritt family as far as racing goes. What got you started in racing? Was your dad? I mean, how did you? I know you're a big NASCAR fan.
Really, it started with a favorite color of blue, and Richard Petty was blue, and I just saw it on TV one day and started watching it. What really got us into it was me and a friend of mine we grew up. We were sitting there at his house one day, and we just started hearing this loud noise coming from up the street, and we got curious to see what it was, and turned out it was a guy that had a mini modified Pinto.
Okay.
And
got hooked.
We went, and he invited us to go to a race, and we did. And
where was that at? Was it at?
That was Old Dominion,
yeah, okay.
Early '80s.
Okay.
It was back when they ran the real mini mods
Right.
that basically you could just show up with a 4-cylinder and ran whatever you wanted to run.
Right.
The big slicks, people like Les Stager, Bill Lone,
Yep.
and then a few years later, I had my own car.
The number 9.
The number 9.
Was that the number 9? Of course, I know your favorite driver,
Yeah.
Awesome Bill from Dawsonville.
Yeah, Bill Elliott, the 9. Yeah, that's been in the up until just last year. We had that car
Right.
numbered, and Mark Miller, a good friend of ours,
Yep.
he bought one of my cars, and for the people that know him, he was in a pretty horrific crash at the track, and money was just not any object for him to be able to come back in a late model, so he showed some interest of doing a U car, so
Right.
I had an extra one. It was a Ford. It was a 9, so I gave him the 9 on the condition that if he ever got out of it, the 9 came back to me.
Right, right.
So that's where the 9 came from.
Was it a Pinto? What were you running? Was it a Pinto?
It was a Ford Probe,
Okay.
at Dominion Raceway, but it was a Pinto always
Right.
at Old Dominion.
Right, exactly. And can you remember your first race? How nervous were you for their first race?
Oh, it was horrendous.
Really?
I think I ran around the bottom of the track so much I picked up the grass, the dirt, the rocks, but it took probably 6 races or so to finally
Right.
get going and understand it, and from that point forward, we were good. I mean, we were top 3-4 car every night.
Right.
But I had a lot of help too.
Yeah. Well, we were talking about before. You've heard me talk to Ryan and John about the friendships you develop, and it was
Right.
that way with the mini division, the mini stock division out there at
Yeah,
Old Dominion.
it was some friendships that started when I was in my early 20s.
And you still have.
And Charlie Walker,
Yep.
whose son races at Southside. We've raced against the fathers. Now my kids are racing against their kids. We raced with Mitchell Harris, and then unfortunately he recently passed
Yep.
away. Dwight Hansberger, who
Yep.
recently passed away, but doesn't make me feel real good age-wise.
Right.
But it's a special bond,
Yeah.
and and again, you have your ones that you just don't get along with,
Right.
but it seems like that those are the ones that turn out that you don't
would-
see them anymore.
Right. Right.
And,
Exactly.
but yeah, it's been a long racing career, and now able to put my kids in cars, and
Yep.
we've had a lot of help there. And I'll be quite honest, my kids a little bit more successful than I have, but it's a whole different ball game.
I know you've heard this question asked to you several times. More nervous when you were driving, or more nervous watching John and Ryan go around the track?
It's not as bad if one of them's out there, but when both of them get out there together, it ramps up. But I've gotten, it's just it's weird. The driving abilities that both of them have,
Right.
they just, I'm worried about them. They're my kids. And the speeds that we carry in these U cars,
Right.
I'm worried, but it is what it is. You take that risk when you put seatbelts on and head out to
Right.
the track.
Right. Old Dominion. Compare Old Dominion to Dominion Raceway. Obviously, you want to be on the bottom because that's the quickest way around the track. But it seems like and what I've observed this season out at Dominion Raceway is there is a second groove. We've seen it in the late model class where, we've seen Tyler Hughes and Doug Barnes Jr. and so forth really be strong on the outside. I'm not sure if that was always the case at Old Dominion Speedway.
No. Going into the corners at Old Dominion through 1 and 2, you wanted to be down low.
Right.
I mean, I never was in the late models or
Right.
anything like that, but I know in the mini stocks when we ran, if you went into turn 3, if you went down low, actually 3 and 4 ran uphill, and you
Okay.
would scuff off enough speed that it would make a difference. So you stayed a car length and a half off the bottom going through 3 and 4.
Right.
That was pretty much the quickest way around. I never ran a top groove,
Right.
into 1 or 2 in the mini stocks, but the differences between Dominion and Old Dominion, I mean, there is no
Night and day,
comparison.
right?
Yeah, I mean, I loved Old Dominion, had a lot of fun there, but I mean, you're racing down the back straightaways and there's grass growing in the track.
Right,
and,
right.
You've got guardrails used, from it just. If the speeds that we have now in the U cars, when they ran back there, somebody would have probably gotten really hurt bad
Yeah,
if they ever
yeah.
hit the wall at Old Dominion with
Yeah.
the telephone poles and guardrail.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
so,
I think there was a pond, wasn't there, on the backstretch also? I mean,
yeah, I don't think. I think sometimes we used to when it was in between races or waiting on something, some of us
fishing?
go fishing back there. But but I don't think anybody ever got in a pond. But I do remember a grocery getter that got through the turn 3 fence and ended up
Yeah.
on the drag strip.
oh, wow.
Yeah.
I was talking to Ryan, your son, about racing, and the one word that came up in two segments was patience. Was that something for you as a driver? Was that hard for you to get used to? Because there's a fine line between, okay, I got to be aggressive and I got to be patient, because if I'm too aggressive, I'm going to cause an accident or a crash.
Well, patience for Ryan, it's
Not in his vocabulary, right?
no. Me, I don't think the patience was an issue. It was maybe not aggressive enough. Because I can recall numerous times that if I was getting ready to get down underneath of somebody and they would come down on me, I mean, legitimately I could put the bumper to them and turn them.
Right.
But I just again, a lot of those guys were really good friends.
Right.
And to me, yes, we want to win.
Right.
We want to be competitive, but for $50, $60,
Right.
whatever you're going to win, it's
Right.
it's just to tear up somebody's car
Yeah.
for really nothing. If you're that quick and you could get under him there, you could probably get under him somewhere
Right.
else and get on
Right.
mine.
Right.
So
Exactly.
yeah, so probably my thing, if it's a true statement, is just was too nice a guy racing.
Well, it also sounds like maybe respect for your fellow driver. I mean, and that might have been I think it's a good quality to have, but it also can be a hindrance when you're on the track.
Right. I just, like I said, we had in the mini stock division back in that time frame. The guys were
Oh, you had some
great.
great
They were
people.
just. I mean, I had Brandon Butler,
Yeah.
whose father would help us with setups. And then Al Daly was helping us, but I think his crew chief Audie Bradford, when they were breaking out the barometric pressure tester to see what type of jet to run in the carburetor, I said, guys, listen,
You're right.
this is the carburetors on the car, and that's
Right.
what we're going to go with.
Right.
But it was fun until it got to the point
Right.
where they weren't mini stocks anymore. They were late model stock cars
Right.
with
Right.
a Pinto body,
Right.
and
Exactly.
it just by that time I'd gotten married, had Ryan had just he was around, and
Yeah.
his older sister Amy, and money just it wasn't there to
Right.
do it. So we took a few years off, but then go-karts came around, and then but actually Ryan, I think I was hearing him talking to you earlier. I think he finished. I think he was third or fourth the first car night he ever got in. I
wow.
don't think it was that. I don't think he was that far back, because that's what I was very surprised.
Right,
I mean,
right.
he just jumped in that thing and was doing it.
Right.
And I think if he'd had another lap or two, it might have gotten really interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think he finished third or fourth that first night. I don't think he was back as far as he said he was.
All right. We're going to take a real quick break. When we come back, we'll talk more with Jimmy Pritt with Pritt Motorsports about racing. We're also going to get his thoughts about NASCAR. And, there's also been a lot of talk about NASCAR's lost its popularity. Going to try to get some pointers from him. Going to put him in charge of NASCAR and get his thoughts about how he's going to change the sport. That's coming up. Stay with us.
Short track racing is the grassroots of motorsports. Pritt Motorsports has been racing on the local track scene for over 30 years. Sponsorship opportunities exist for next season. Call 703-618-5122 for more information. Pritt Motorsports fields cars in the U-Car, modified, and Dominion stocks. Racing is in their blood. To inquire about sponsorship opportunities with Pritt Motorsports, call 703-618-5122.
We are Pritt Motorsports.
If you're broke down and need a tow, call the professionals at Eagle Towing and Recovery, 540-834-3500. The Tuning family has been serving the area for 50 years. Eagle Towing and Recovery does local and long-distance towing, off-road recovery, and lockouts. Eagle Towing and Recovery, 540-834-3500. The name to remember the next time you need a tow. Eagle Towing and Recovery also services Dominion Raceway. Eagle Towing and Recovery, 24-hour towing service. We may doze, but we never close. 540-834-3500.
Welcome back, Sports Etc. We're talking with Jimmy Pritt, Pritt Motorsports, and we were talking during our break here. A lot of folks think at this grassroots level with the short track racing, unlike NASCAR, there's no crew chief, there's no crew, I don't know if you have a spotter. But so as you were out practicing at Old Dominion prior to the feature race, you would come in and pretty much you would make the adjustments to the car that you thought needed to be made, right?
Yeah, mostly. And then again, I mean, we leaned on advice from other people, and because at that point in time, the Pinto was pretty much the car everybody had.
Right.
And if one thing wasn't working for one person, you would just go over and ask the other person what they were doing, and then some of them would lead some good information. Some it just wouldn't work for your car.
Right.
So,
right.
but yeah, and again too, most of us were all just friends. And if one person had a problem, that everybody just came over and worked on your car.
Right. Exactly.
So
when you were racing out at Old Dominion too, Jimmy, the other thing was it was a hobby. I mean, a lot of the weekend mechanics or weekday mechanics, they that was their stress relief right there to go out to the track. But now it is. We've talked many times about you need sponsorship, you need money if you want to try to run up front, and we all, let's not kid ourselves, there's one that people that get more money and they run up front, but it's really, in my opinion anyways, one thing I really miss is it's kind of lost that hobby type of feeling, because it's kind of more of a business. Have you seen that as well over the years?
Well, it's going to be a business if you want to be competitive,
right?
Because I mean, the first few years into the U-Car, it was a huge transition from myself trying to put the thought into the car from rear wheel drives to front wheel drives, because they are a different beast altogether.
Right.
And I mean, I'll be the first to admit it. If any racetrack thinks that these U-Cars, are out there running stock, it's impossible.
Right.
You can't, because if you want to be stock, you first of all, these engines can't take the RPMs that we're twisting, especially the track size of Dominion.
Right.
So if you're going to be competitive, you're going to have some money in it. Now, if you're independently wealthy, then it probably doesn't matter.
Right.
Up until last year, pretty much the entire racing thing with me and my kids, it was out of my pocket.
Right.
And just last year alone, out of my pocket, but we built the 71, which I learned there that I'll never do a ground up build again. You just go buy somebody else's that's already done. But we were probably well over, out of my pocket, $20,000 last year.
Wow.
And that, and then Al from Eagles Towing came on board. Matco Tools came on board with us, and my brother-in-law, who works for a local lettering company, he's the one that makes these things look like they do.
Right.
He helped out, which is you can't even imagine the cost it takes
Right.
to do a car. And then, we had some, help here and there. And again, my employer, Little Tire in Fredericksburg, Boss Man's been kind enough to let us use a shop at nights
Right.
when we needed to and
Right.
stuff like that. But with this thing sitting behind us, my son left my pocketbook long ago.
Right, right.
I could never build something like this for him, period.
Right.
And it's very nice and neat that, Mr. Snellings came on and got Ryan to drive this thing. But he's out of my league when he got to that.
Right.
And, I'll have to tell you, from jumping from, where he started out and, a U-car, then he went into go-karts, and then, I helped him with the U-cars that he started out with.
Right.
Last year when we first started running with the U-car, Ryan scared me to death because he didn't understand really anything other than that gas pedal.
Right.
And if I remember correctly, I believe that Al, that's with Eagle Towing, one of our sponsors, he used to work for NASCAR.
Right.
And he gave him some tips on driving, and it seemed like from one practice one night to the next practice, he was a whole different kid.
Right.
And I'm sure he's not going to like this, but how in the heck he's ended up doing what he has done
Right.
and driving, you never saw it.
Right.
And then all of a sudden it just came, and
Right.
reeling off the wins. And
How proud were you as a dad when he won that track championship?
It was really cool because I came close
Yeah.
a couple times, but I never got it, and it was just, I never imagined.
Right.
I was like dumbfounded the first night. He just went out there and won, but I think probably the neatest thing was that Ryan was up front most of the night, and John in his very ever, at Dominion in the new car, he was started 8th, 9th, and he ran Ryan down, and I think with about 3 laps to go, they had a caution, and they do that, restart thing where they put a cone in it, and
yeah.
you can pick.
High and low, yeah.
Well, I had Ryan on the inside and John on the outside, and
A little nervous.
yeah, and I'm thinking all they're gonna do is wad each other up, and
Right.
and where I was standing, I'd gotten so nervous I had to get down in the third turn just to get away from everybody, and they went into 1 and 2, and I lost them. I couldn't see them coming down the backstretch, and I heard the crowd go crazy. Well, John had gotten in front of him by a few feet, and then for the next couple laps, they were like door handle to door handle.
Right.
And then finally, Ryan was able. I think Ryan got him by about a car length going across the finish line, and that was having both cars
Yeah,
on the very
that's
first
pretty
night
cool.
of the race,
Yeah.
first and second. Yeah, we did real good. That was
That's
cool.
pretty cool. And of course, Ryan has been a fan favorite with his after winning. He'll give out gloves to kids or hats or something. But I know he's a big fan favorite. I know that makes you proud too, because that's what the sport's all about. Is you got to have fun.
Yeah, that's I think his trademark, and I don't really care, if I spend $100 on a pair of gloves one night or
Right.
whatever, and he's doing it, giving it away. Big part of that too was our sponsor Matco Tools, Mark Breed, and he would
Yeah.
give out shirts, hats to throw into the crowd. But maybe a lot of the other drivers in track need to take notice of that,
Right.
because he gave back to
Right,
the fans,
exactly,
and
exactly.
but you didn't. I don't believe you saw any other race
No,
team do that
no.
at all, and I haven't seen it in 2 years.
Exactly. Okay, before we wrap this up, I want to put you in charge of NASCAR, because I want to tell you, I never thought I'd see the day that there would be tickets available on the radio asking people to buy tickets to Richmond International Raceway. And I've seen, where they put tarps over certain stands, and the popularity is dwindling, whether NASCAR wants to admit it or not. But what can be done, Jimmy? What if you were in charge of NASCAR? What would you do? What was one of the first things you'd do?
Well, honestly, they've let it go so far to where it is now. I don't know.
Can they get it back?
They need to get rid of this. All these cookie cutter tracks.
Right.
They need to go back to their old roots. We need to go back to North Carolina Speedway. We need to go back to Rockingham.
Yep.
We need to stop going to these tracks, that don't really mean the heartbeat of
Right.
NASCAR.
Right.
I think the worst thing that ever happened is, and I mean, everybody passes away, but, Bill France Sr. and, and the worst thing that ever happened in NASCAR was Dale Earnhardt dying.
Yeah.
Because he would have not.
No, he wouldn't have put up with this.
He wouldn't have put up with this. But, and the thing about it is it's just money. I mean, they need to go back to stuff like, like like our 71 or Grand Stock. I mean, the old body styles. Well,
that's one complaint that I've heard from NASCAR fans, the older NASCAR fans, is you can't tell the cars apart.
No.
It might be a Ford, but it's next to a Chevy, which you outside of that plate, you can't tell the difference between the cars.
Yeah.
People don't realize, but that means a lot to a diehard NASCAR fan.
Well, from my understanding, is that on your Cup cars, the rolling chassis and everything are all the same, other than, you got a Toyota motor, a Ford motor, Chevrolet motor. The rear ends are all Fords.
Yeah.
And the sheet metal and the templates and everything are so close to each other. The only way you tell the difference is if it's got the Toyota nose cone and it says, SSE or something on the back says Camry.
Yeah.
Now, and again, the other thing is, you talked about earlier the business aspect of it.
Yeah.
Money, money, money.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, even when Jack Roush can't win a race, and it's the same thing. Who wants to go see Hendrick or Joe Gibbs win every race?
Right.
And then Martin Truex, I like him a lot.
Yeah.
He's a great guy, but that's not Furniture Road.
Right.
That's Joe Gibbs.
Exactly.
And so I don't know. I don't think that you get one chance to make a great impression, and I don't know what Brian France has done, but I used to go to Richmond races, go to Bristol. Me and my brother-in-law would go to Rockingham all the time. The only reason that I've been to a Cup race in the last 5 years is because my brother-in-law had free tickets.
Right.
And Richmond wasn't even sold out.
Yeah. I remember I went a few years ago to North Wilkesboro. Edwin Pardue wanted me to come down there and help him out. Boy, first time I've ever been there. What a great track.
Yeah, I mean, they went away from what got them going. And then taking races away from, like Atlanta running one now, and then taking a one from New Hampshire to give to Las Vegas.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't even go out west until, other than Riverside.
Exactly.
And then I believe, if my memory serves me correct, I mean, there was a thing called Ontario Speedway, but I think that was maybe a little closer to when I was born or old enough, but we never went east of the Mississippi. I mean, they had Texas World Speedway, but I don't know if that lasted or. I know it's the parking lot now for all the cars are flooded in Houston.
Exactly.
But it's just, I mean, they've just ruined it. It's just, I mean, like I said, we like to run the small stuff because it's more family oriented and we have fun.
Right.
But, every track that we've been to, we've had fun. Maybe not as much fun as another one, but on the big level of it, if somebody came down to one of my kids and said, hey, I'm going to give you a ride in an Xfinity car or a truck, sure, I'm going to support my kids, but do I have aspirations of ever moving that far up with them? No.
Exactly.
So I'd just rather just do what